Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer, back in the saddle alongside Mike Gallagher. I'm an older man now, Mike. I'm 40. I'm a man, and I'm 40, like Mike Gundy.
Nice, Grundy.
I am
Mike G Party.
I am rehabilitating from a weekend filled with love and fun and festivities and good food, and had a flight out early this morning from Miami back in New York. Just got settled in about an hour ago, so I am playing catch-up mode on NBA. I was not. I was smelling the roses all weekend long. Golf course, escape rooms, fine dining. I was doing it all. So I'm going to be relying on you today to catch me up. How are you doing, my man?
Gotcha. Just did a quick little hike. Feeling good. I got a little fun day planned. Meeting Mark Dankenbring from Suns Jazz tonight. So
Nice.
we just found out that a pizza spot called Pizzeria Bianco. It's one of the best pizza spots in the country. It's closed on Monday, so that's all bad. But yeah, super pumped.
Nice.
It's kind of crazy. I worked at Rotor World NBC for like 10 years, and I only met one person, and so like in person. And now I'm about to beat my seconds. I met Wiggins, so super dope.
yeah. It's the life of the internet content enthusiast. You don't always get to meet all your heroes in person all the time, but it's great. You'll get to meet one of yours today, Mark Dankenbring. Very excited about that for you guys. Let's talk about this. 4-game slate is what we got going on. Let's bring up the schedule here, and we've got a nice little small slate for a Monday, which is strange. Huge Tuesday slate, which I was not prepared for when I looked at the schedule this week. So things are shifting as the football schedule shifts. As you see the NBA start to kind of move their schedule around. So let's talk about these 4 games tonight. Let's start with the lead, and let's start with the Bulls. I guess my Chicago Bulls. I'm sort of a Bulls fan. I saw over the weekend that Grayson Allen destroyed Caruso, and Caruso's gone for a while now. Lonzo's gone for a while. But LaVine might be back. Is that the hope for Zach LaVine? I see LaVine might be back. I see Javonte Green and Vucevic questionable as well. So what's going on with the Bulls?
Yeah, LaVine and Green did not travel to Orlando, but they're going to meet the team in OKC tonight. So, I mean, you don't send somebody to OKC, either let's say a family or they're planning to play in a basketball game. So I think LaVine's got a shot to play. I think Javonte Green's got a shot to play. Both their timeline. LaVine's a little early in the timeline, but he didn't have any structural damage. We'll see. Javonte Green, soft tissue, groin injury, so he will almost certainly have a cap on him. But the interesting part of this is you get OKC, and if you look at the Bulls' schedule, we've seen them, go with Alfonso. When he went away, it was Alfonso McKinney, and then Tyler Cook's been taking over.
Yeah,
and that's because look at the schedule: Monster, Cavs, Giannis, and then big Magic front court. Now you don't have that issue. You're going to be playing probably Aaron Wiggins starting, Dort, Giddey, SGA, and then probably Jeremiah Robinson Earl. So you absolutely, positively do not need a traditional 4-man. So that raises the question of who starts, right? And I think it's certainly feasible to start Kobe, Ayo, DeMar DeRozan, and who am I forgetting? LaVine. Yeah. And then whatever center. So they've only used that lineup 7 minutes with Vooch, and then 4 minutes of that 4 perimeter guy group with a combination of Derek Jones Jr. and Alize Johnson's not there anymore. So you could do it. So I think that's probably where they're going to go. Keep Javonte Green on a minutes cap, but they have started Javonte Green in that lineup with Kobe White, LaVine, DeRozan, Vooch. They started that lineup 3 times in a row when Lonzo was out earlier in the season. So I think that's probably the favorite, but I wouldn't be surprised given Ayo his play lately. I think he could still start. I think his minutes could be really good regardless, just because they don't need Cook. They don't need anybody with size in this matchup.
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is assuming everybody that's questionable is in, meaning LaVine and Vooch, the locked-in starters are probably Kobe, LaVine, DeRozan, Vooch, right? Those 4 are probably locked in. And the 5th guy is either, do they go with their best lineups and their best players, which is probably Ayo at this point with the way that he's been playing? Do they go with the player that's been starting of late, which could be Cook or McKinney? I think at this point, Cook would be ahead of McKinney just because they have not been happy with McKinney's play, which I think is the least likely scenario, just keeping with what they've been doing. Or do they go back to Javonte Green and basically say, hey, you were the starter before all of this, and we want to get you back into this role, and that's the route we're going to go on that front. I think it makes the most sense because the matchup, as you allude to, and the way that he's been playing of late, for it to be Io. I don't think he's long for this starting spot when all the guards are healthy, though. I do think the absence of backup guard depth is kind of an important thing that they'll want to split those minutes up. But in this matchup in particular, I think it's certainly one that they can afford to play Io if they want to go that route. So obviously bringing Levine back into the mix from a rates perspective really compresses things. You get back to the good old days of the Bulls early in the season when so much of the offense was run through DeRozan, Vucevic, and Levine. You'll get lesser of these big breakout performances from guys like Dosunmu. Kobe White will still have an offensive role because he's just such a good piece as a spot-up shooter for them with getting spacing with these guys, and he'll benefit more, actually, I think, from playing with these guys than he was early in the season from playing in second units where he was with like one of these guys. I think he's going to get a lot of open looks with these guys. So I think Kobe's performance could continue. It just might be 3-ball heavy. The rest of the guys, I would expect the secondary peripheral statistics, specifically Ayu, to really take a step back, just because there will not be as much of a ball handling role available with both Levine and DeRozan around.
Yeah, prior to last night, he had in the previous 3 games, he had 16 potential assists per game. Obviously, he was playing like upper 30s, but still a really big number. And a point Billy Donovan made last night that was a point of frustration was, look at this, the starting guards, 0 dimes. Like that's horrible against a Magic defense. It's prone to giving up, a lot of guard stats. So he was not happy with
10 assists total on 33 buckets is not what you're looking for.
Yeah, and he deserves, and he was not happy, and he talked about Io being a learning experience, which is code for you need to play better. So definitely we'll see the minutes cap kind of come down. Like the question is, like, if you go back to, I don't know, we'll call it 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, whatever it was, when like they were starting Kobe, you may remember that game when Trae Young ripped Kobe a new one, and they abandoned it. So like I think that's why they're going to need either Io or Green. They can't start Cook because Cook can't guard SGA. So whoever you're starting in that spot, they were unsure of if Levine plays. It has to be Io or Javonte, in my opinion.
Do you think there's a chance that Kobe goes back to just the bench microwave heating role?
Man, I don't. I think that makes sense, honestly. Like in most matchups, but especially given like the length of time they're going to be missing Caruso and Lonzo to get him comfortable in that role. Like you don't need the extra offensive punch, you need that point of attack defender, and you take a little bit of pressure off Javonte Green. But if I'm done, that's what I would do. I think it's just a little bit cleaner. Like you have enough offense with those 3 guys in the first unit. Just put Ayu in there defensively at a little ball handling. But that's the cleanest one to me.
So maybe that does make sense. Maybe the only 3 locked in starters are DeRozan, Vooch, Levine, assuming Levine and Vooch can go. Maybe Kobe White's role is at risk. I think it's lesser so certainly than that 5th starter position, but I think it's up in the mix
today. I'd be pretty surprised because you could just put him on. Aaron Wiggins or whoever they're going to start, Giddey, who is fine. So they don't need it to. I'd be pretty surprised if it doesn't start today. But
and you think the shakier spots going forward are going to be against ball dominant elite scoring guards for Kobe?
Yeah, well that too, or if they have bigger lineup because I think they want to start Javonte Green as like their foundation piece,
right?
But either way, like that ball, like I guess we look at their schedules, kind of getting ahead of ourselves. But like just for some examples, oh my God, like you would not want to put Kobe White in any of these matchups here. So like that would make sense to maybe get him in here, especially with the way these teams attack the paint. But they could put Javonte on that role too. They use Javonte as the point of attack defender a lot too.
So for season-long players out there, those that are watching the injury show with that in mind, this might be a little bit of a sell window for Kobe.
I agree.
With Levine coming back, and then also with what the long-term role really looks like for him is probably threes and points, and maybe if the percentages are good, if he's shooting the ball well, continuing, but probably not. Now might be a time to kind of move on and sell high. Okay, if Vooch did not start for Chicago and he was out, how do you think they'd match up?
Tony Bradley, I think he had to get the playing time. They don't have Derrick Jones Jr. They're going to have to play Javonte Green more as a 4-man since they don't have the depth there. Maybe a little bit of playing time, but I mean,
Tyler Cook, the backup 5 in that scenario.
Yeah, Tyler Cook will get the backup minutes because they don't. Look at the roster. They don't have a lot of guys. They're not going to play Simonovic. They're not going to play any of these other guys. So I think that's kind of got to be the way to go. So that's another point. And like, I would be straight stunned if everybody's, even if Levine and Green are playing, I'd be like straight shocked if Cook starts again.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Cool. Let's keep it moving. Let's go over to Cleveland now, where Jared Allen and Rajon Rondo are questionable. Has Rondo returned? I mean, since I left, Rondo was questionable for like a week and a half. So he still has been questionable and has not played.
They've been rolling him out early, but now he's questionable again.
Okay. So what's the situation with Jared Allen? It looks like illness. Hard to read here, but they're also without Lauri Markkanen. So the front court is thinning a little bit, which is a key area of depth for them. The matchup tonight going up against the Knicks, is an interesting one. So how what do we think on Jared Allen? And if he doesn't start, how do you think do the Cavs go back to Kevin Love as the starting center in those lineups?
Well, worth noting, they started Dean Wade in the third quarter for most of the Lauri minutes, so that would be the favorite to start there if Allen plays. Allen doesn't play, and pretty obviously they're going to start Evan Mobley as a 5-man. And they really like loving that bench role, but I mean, we're taking away Markkanen shooting. Like, I don't think it's crazy just to start Love, but then you're asking, you're bringing Ed Davidson in the mix for rotation minutes and all that stuff. I don't know if they want to do that, but I think they would start Jetty Osman. I think that just makes more sense. And then have Dean Wade as the 4-man. They use him 3 through 5 really, so I think that would probably be the way to go. But Love's minutes should be elevated in a really good matchup. The Knicks are really prone to giving up wide open threes, so I wrote him up in matchups as a possible sneaky play if he's coming off the bench there.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot because if they did choose to keep Love off the bench, you look at what a starting lineup would be in that instance, and you've got Garland, and then you would have Okoro, Jetty, Wade, and Mobley is kind of what you're suggesting there. And really, in terms of guys that can soak up usage, it's Garland and not much else. I mean, Mobley can, but is often a little bit more passive offensively. He's still kind of a young player, like who's very selective on the shots that he takes. And then Okoro doesn't really create for himself at all. Jetty can, but when Jetty does, it's usually when he's like playing kind of a point role, not kind of a wing role. So it could be a lot of usage for Darius Garland, and we've seen the Knicks struggle with perimeter players all season long.
Yeah, Garland's minutes, his tracking stats are crazy. Last 3, 22 potentials per game, 20 drives per game, and second in the NBA in touch time behind James Harden. Actually, more minutes, more touches per minute than Harden, because Harden is playing like 40 minutes. So Garland's role is like the best of the best right now.
Yeah. Okay. On the Knicks side of things, Mitchell Robinson questionable, Kemba questionable, Nerlens Noel probable. Obviously, the center depth is usually a big deal against Cleveland, but we don't know what's going to happen with Jared Allen on this side. So it's a pretty interesting spot for the Knicks. Do we think Mitchell Robinson will be able to go tonight?
I don't know. I mean, he sprained his ankle yesterday. Mitch Robinson is a guy that, they called it a little tweak. It got downplayed, but I mean, Mitch Robinson generally doesn't like to play after any sort of injury. Not necessarily his fault, but just the training staff, as they should be, really cautious with him. So I think he sits. Nerlens Noel was awesome in the second half yesterday afternoon. So I think he would start, pick up a bunch of playing time. He probably won't get up there too high, given it's Nerlens Noel, just coming off injury himself. But, a matchup where they would really need his size. And worth noting, the Cavs played, in my opinion, their worst offensive game of the season. We had a stupid SGA under, and all the turnovers, just time after time. 22% of the possessions were in transition. I want to say like 75% of SGA's points came in transition, killed us. But anyways, Kemba Walker, it like struck me as like maybe they're sitting him out, given the way that the starting lineup played really well in this game. And I think Tibbs didn't want to even just keep it out there, talking about ball movement and everyone really playing well. So like Kemba, they're expecting him to play. So I still think he plays, which would probably, it sounds crazy, but knock Cam Reddish out. Cam Reddish was only RJ Barrett's backup yesterday. And Tibbs had said he has to kind of play his way into the rotation, which makes sense. We talked about Tibbs being very tough on, his parameters of, how he structures his rotation. He's very clear, like, this guy is backing up this guy, the whole rotation. So, like, they have that figured out. So he has to grind. He likes Grimes a lot. He likes IQ a lot. So it's tough for him to kind of squeeze in there if they're going to move Alec Burks back to the bench for Kemba. So, if Kemba returns, we might not even see Cam Reddish play, which sounds crazy.
Yeah. And obviously, if Kemba returns, you'd see a lower minutes floor and ceiling on guys like Alec Burks, Emmanuel Quickly, and Evan Fournier, because we've seen those all kind of be interchangeable. I think with the way RJ Barrett has played of late, he's less vulnerable to those types of sways in-game performance. But certainly just having more depth on ball handlers and wings impacts all those guys. So just be aware, if Kemba does return tonight, it lowers the ceiling on a lot of these secondary guys just by having Kemba like guaranteed to play, 20 to 28 minutes, generally. All right. Indiana, Karis LeVert is questionable. They're without Malcolm Brogdon. They're without Domantas Sabonis. It is, almost like tanking season for Indiana as they've been tumbling down the standings. What do we think on LeVert tonight? And if he's out, gosh, what are we looking at?
We're looking at Kiefer Sykes, right? But we'll see what happens. Let me pull up their because they've been playing actually pretty close games. So let me see if we can. So I kind of tuned out for a quick second. But they played a lot of Kiefer Sykes. He lost a lot of second half minutes in the Warriors game, but he would probably start. Duarte's minutes haven't totally popped, so that's noteworthy. And then I also want to mention that Torrey Craig's played against a lot of strong offensive players. Played against Wiggins. Obviously, got the Devin Booker assignment. Now without Brandon Ingram, you do not need Torrey Craig at all in the spot. So I wouldn't be surprised if they mix it up and go with Dwayne Washington and go small because you're not going to need against Garrett Temple and those guys. So that actually helps Sykes a little bit, and maybe Duarte's minutes come up a little bit. Still see a lot of Lance Stevenson off the bench, and this is all assuming Karis doesn't play. Karis, if he does play, would have a cap, will get Herb for sure, in my opinion. So that's a bad LeVert spot there. Goga will have to play a ton. Bad matchup against Joe Val, but he'll be playing a lot. So those guys, and especially if LeVert's limited by Herb, then they may just really feed Goga here. So and Duarte also could benefit, but Duarte would probably get Herb if he doesn't play. So a lot of things. Hopefully we get cleared up when we do the injury show later today.
I will say
DFS show.
One name that you didn't mention there, and maybe I'm just a sucker for this guy because I've long admired his talent, but his health has always been a question mark, is Jeremy Lamb. And just like we saw Jeremy Lamb have a couple good performances over the last few games, the playing time is always the concern with Lamb, if he can really step into and take meaningful minutes away from these guys. But if you're thinking is if LeVert does play, then they've got Herb Jones on LeVert, and that potentially limits LeVert. The next best playmaker on their team, honestly, to create for himself and others, in my opinion, is Jeremy Lamb. I like his game better than Lance Stevenson. I would consider sliding Lamb into the starting lineup over Torrey Craig if his body can handle it, if he can play those minutes, and just have a secondary ball creator there. Sykes, I see why they'd go in that direction, but I just don't think he's strong enough to create his own shot that would really solve that issue for Indiana. So could see a lot of could be one of those games where even if LeVert plays, you get a little bit of a funky box score just because of the minutes cap that we're expecting. The difficult defensive assignment for LeVert could lead into some of these secondary guys stealing the show. And also Gogo has been playing so well in so many minutes over the course of the weekend since Sabonis went down. He's going to have a really tough time staying on the floor going up against Valanciunas from a fouls perspective. So things could get very, very funky in the box score for Indiana tonight.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. On the other side of that, Devontae Graham is questionable for New Orleans. You already mentioned Brandon Ingram is out. So, in terms of New Orleans, if they were without Devontae Graham, without Brandon Ingram, you start to lose a lot of offensive creation. They've got Trey Murphy and Najee Marshall down in the G League, so those guys aren't going to fill in and get playing time tonight. So you would start to look around, and it's like, okay, who else on this team can really create for themselves if they were without Graham and Ingram? It's obviously Valanciunas, it's Josh Hart, and then it's Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker has really fallen out of favor on this team during the course of the year, but this could be an opportunity to see more of an on tonight.
Yeah, and you missed Jose Alvarado breakout weekend while you were away.
Apparently.
Yeah, he was awesome. He closed out the Knicks. He's a Brooklyn-born guy. Quick fun story: Josh Hart and Brandon Ingram bought 20 tickets for his friends and family. Nice. Really cool story there. So man, he might start, dude, because Willie Green's talked him up like crazy. So if Devontae Graham doesn't play, I would expect Alvarado to start, Keaton on at second unit. But as we've kind of seen, Na's been just a complete disaster. But back when Ingram missed, I think 7 games in November, October, we saw a lot of minutes in Nickeil, big usage, 17, 4, and 4 per game. on just bad shooting. So if he shot like okay, he'd be like 20 points per game. So would be a good spot there. We'll probably see, I think regardless, see Garrett Temple start unless they get real funky with this one. I'm trying to see where, the G League guys were in Birmingham last night, so there's a chance they get called up here. Birmingham to New Orleans isn't very far, so they could bring them back in time. We'll have to keep an eye on that to make sure our projections are good. But Alvarado, man, I love the matchup too. So if Alvarado's cheap, and I assume he is, if all these guys are out, I mean, I think he's going to run the show a lot.
Yeah, this could look, if no LeVert, if no Devontae Graham, this could look a lot like April NBA basketball with some of the watered down rosters here, and potentially lots of minutes and cheap value. Some other noteworthy situations to cover.
And if I could add real quick too, Herb's per 36 stats really go up with Ingram off the court. I think 16, 4, and 4, like 2 blocks, 2 steals per 36, like 117-minute sample. So a little more offensive for Herb against experienced, mistake-prone offense could lead to a lot of transition. So Herb's a guy that I'm looking at today too.
Okay. Some of the other noteworthy injuries to cover on Phoenix's side of things: DeAndre Ayton is doubtful. Jay Crowder and Cam Payne are both out. So Phoenix is getting really, really thin for a team that has not had injury issues for a while now. But that front court, they're without Kaminsky. Obviously, they got Biyombo to add front court depth. And him and JaVale McGee can cover the center minutes in the absence of DeAndre Ayton. And that should be pretty close to a split down the middle would be my guess, just with JaVale's conditioning issues. Maybe you get Jalen Smith more into the mix at the 4, just because without Jay Crowder, you need to cover some minutes there. No Cam Payne limits the amount of smaller lineups that Phoenix can really roll out there because they don't have as much confidence in guys like Elfrid Payton to take on that role. So what are we looking at when we've seen these injuries kind of pile up on Phoenix in the past? We've seen the potential for actually really high minutes for the starters because they don't really trust the main bench guys that they trust are Cam Payne and Cameron Johnson. And when they have to slide Cameron Johnson kind of in the starting lineup, things kind of get condensed a little bit.
Yeah, Cameron Johnson's for sure starting. He was asked about that, Monty Williams, after the game, because you see Chris Paul playing 41 minutes in a game against the Pacers. Like, that should not have happened. But, he was like, I won't do that again. I want to keep him like lower 30s. We'll play. He said Elfrid Payton as the backup one, mixing in some Landry Shamet as the backup, third string one if they need to, if things kind of go sideways. So they've got options to limit there. So expect those guys to get pretty consistent minutes. You mentioned, I think Jalen Smith does pick up some 4 minutes, which really secures the, center minutes for JaVale. And then, man, Bismack Biyombo, you also missed like Bismack Biyombo being like an all-NBA player over the weekend. Like, he went nuts the last few games here. So, yeah, 21, 13, and 5, just completely obliterated Goga and the front court
I'm trying to think just off the top of my head. Bismack Biyombo's had a long career, but my guess is there's got to be less than 5 times in his entire career that he's gotten to 5 assists. That would be my guess.
Well, he matched his career high at 21 points.
Yeah.
And then you're probably right on the dimes. 5 dimes. And after the game, like, Monty Williams is like, he brings out the best in Biyombo, but Chris Paul does. So
Chris Paul brings out the best in a lot of bigs.
Yeah,
he's been doing that his whole career.
That has actually, I think there was like a run where like the Hornets had like no guards and they like played to Biyombo a little bit more. So I feel like he may have. I'm gonna find that out right now though.
Okay, on the other side of things, we're waiting on Utah in terms of their injury reporting situation. Back to back, Utah has been without Donovan Mitchell. We think there's a chance they're without Gobert. We don't know what the status on Whiteside is. So what are we looking for and expecting from Utah tonight?
Biyombo matched his career high again. 3 times he's hit 5 dimes in his career.
Like I said, less than 5. Yeah. Less than 5 was my guess.
There you go. Nailed it. So a lot going on here. We know Donovan's out. Rudy Gobert strained his calf last night at the end of the game. I think I'd be shocked if he plays. Boyard has a knee contusion. Wouldn't be surprised if he sits. Mike Conley went to the locker room, returned, should be okay, but Mike Conley on the back-to-back, which are getting dinged up. Yeah. I mean, you're really, really running out of players here. So I was looking it up. If you remember, back when they sat everybody out, they didn't even send dudes to Toronto. They just said, hey, we'll meet you in Indiana.
Yeah.
And that's when we saw this ridiculous lineup. Should add Hassan Whiteside has cleared, so he probably could be back. And what could be I described it as like a Michael Bay movie with like Hassan Whiteside versus JaVale McGee in matchups. Like it's just like two dudes just being goofy and going nuts, and it should be fun. But he'll have a minutes cap on him, I think. But we know they need him to perform. Again, they're going to need offense. So if all these guys are sitting, it could be just madness. So when we get that report, we'll be having some fun. But Pascal, he had a pretty good role with all those guys sitting out the last time. Elijah Hughes had a really good game. I think there's going to be massive rest. They're back in Utah on Wednesday, national TV game against these Suns. So I think you just nail it in and just be ready for Wednesday. They're playing crappy as hell right now, too. I mean, they should have won that game last night against the Warriors. Warriors played like crap. The Jazz, they've lost some bad games lately. I mean, look at these losses that they've been suffering. Yeah. Rockets, Lakers, like they're just not playing well. I think you just hit the reset button and nail it in, get ready for Wednesday.
All right. Any other injury situations that I did not cover that you want to tackle before we get out of here?
I'll add to. I didn't mention Valanciunas. It's not injury related, but they've been off for 3 days, and Brandon Ingram is out. And I mentioned Goga's been a disaster. Like my God, like Valanciunas could go like for like a 35 ball today, just points.
Yeah.
So I'll just add. We'll talk more about that on the show for sure.
For more of the Golden Nuggets, join
Did
us.
Gobert get ruled? I didn't think Gobert was officially ruled out, but he's definitely not playing.
Okay. For more of those great DFS nuggets, join us behind the paywall at Established Runs NBA DFS premium content with myself and Mike Gallagher at 5 o'clock Eastern time today on Establish the Show. We will be back in front of the paywall here on YouTube, which you can subscribe. You can also choose to smash the like button. Just tap it, whatever you'd like to do, however you feel comfortable. Really, it's on you. To show your affection for our free programming that we will deliver once again tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern. Want to wish you guys all the best of luck in your games. Thank you all for the warm birthday wishes and the welcome back. It's good to be back here talking NBA injuries with you guys, talking NBA DFS behind the paywall later this afternoon. Enjoy the games tonight. We'll be back at 2 o'clock Eastern tomorrow.